Laurie Huston's News for the Heart is dedicated to helping you give a voice to your own soul. Our hearts have the power to free us from pain and the struggles that keep us from awakening to our true essence. Join Laurie now as we delve into our heart and soul to find the path that will open us to the possibilities and lead us to the life we love to live.
And good afternoon. This is News for the Heart. And today, because it's the second Tuesday of the month, we have our awesome co-host, Tracy McBurney, with us. Tracy's gone through a little bit of an event that is something we all go through we all go through, whether it's with pets or it's with people, but we all have that event where something happens and we now got to deal with the grief of losing something that's important to us and part of our hearts. So we're going to talk about a little bit of a lot of things probably in the show, because I don't think it's not a straight line, this one. So we're going to start with,
I am so happy that you figured out how to do that whole intro and still give me that laugh. But, oh man, if she starts going down this rabbit hole, I'm not going to get this laugh. And I'm here for that laugh. So I'm really happy that you figured out how to do that in this challengingly interesting topic. Mm-hmm. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And it is an interesting, as we were talking about it before the show, it is a bit of an interesting rabbit hole we're going to walk in, because I don't really know where the show's going to go. So we're just going to talk and see where it goes. So starting with that grief place. So yes, so I now say goodbye to our beautiful dog of the last 15 and a half years. Tiramisu was her name, but mostly we called her Misu. And she was a lovely, delightful being of energy that would come into my office and help clients whenever she felt intuitively like she was going to make her appearance. And even in the last week, when she wasn't so well, she decided she was going to make an appearance for a client that came in on a Sunday, and I was really wanting her not to, and she came back into my office twice. I was really quite insistent about it. So it's like, okay, all right, we're going to be doing this together. So she was a little sweet. Anyway, so that's been a interesting little bit of a journey. But in a very different one for me than for my husband, which is one of the things that we were speaking about, because I really stepped forward to be, let's call it, the major caregiver person for this lovely dog over the last year or so. And that became a little more challenging, to the point where you just couldn't do what we did before, go away on vacation and say to one of the X number of people that said, oh, we'll take your dog. There was no, let's give our dog to somebody, because she was incontinent when she went to sleep. So for the last year, we had towels all over our beautiful social couch. I call it the social couch, the extraordinary big couch in our little living room that really was socially distanced for COVID, which was lovely, like 7 feet or 7.5 feet in one direction. You could be away from somebody else and still be on the couch. And so there was a lot of towels that had to get used over the last year, and a lot of washing and all of that stuff. And mostly that became my world. And, I was saying to you, before we started the show, the day after we said goodbye to her, one of the pillows that was not on the couch, because I put it away from the couch, the one pillow for the couch that I really liked and I didn't want ruined over this last year, I literally put down in its place on the couch for the first time in a year and a bit. And I sat there looking at this pillow and went, okay, so the pillow's back in its place. If there was a place, it's back in its place. This pillow that I like so much, I had to heave it over in one place, looking ridiculous for a year and something, so it's preserved. And the pillow's back in its place, and I'm looking and going, so that doesn't feel so special. That doesn't feel great. That, like, okay, so the pillow's back in its place. So it doesn't look ridiculous over here. The couch doesn't look ridiculous with all the towels on it. So you have to apologize for, it's like, and I just went, why did I care? Like, why did I care about this pillow? Why did I care about saving it? Why did I care? Why did I get so upset, resentful, frustrated when the pillow couldn't be back in its place? Why did I even have a day of feeling like that? So here I am with this pillow back on its couch. And I remember just thinking, Cody's asleep and it's the first day after Misa's left, and just kind of looked and went, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit about this pillow. I don't care that this pillow's back in its place. What is its fucking place? Sorry. Anyway, like, what is its place anyway? And why did I care about it? And this isn't important. And I'd rather have my dog back. I'd rather have my dog back, even though she would still come back and be incontinent. I'd rather have my dog back. I'd rather have all the towels on the pillows. I'd rather have another week of washing everything that needed to be washed. I'd just rather that. And I just kind of stared and went, why did I care about this pillow? And why did I care about it being placed badly over there or not being in its right place? Like, why did I care? Why was that so important even for a day? So I just sat with that. I sat with that and I really worked to observe it, but not be judgmental of myself. Just kind of like, why? Why did I care about all of that so much? Why did I even make that important for a day? Was it important to be important? Is it important that am I going insane? Like I'm literally with myself that day going, am I going insane? I'm like, I'm investigating all of these things. So there was that. And like I said, my husband and I have traveled 2 different roads to get here. The dog was incredibly important to our little family, my son, my husband, myself. But I really was the person that really stepped in to do the more difficult job of figuring out how do you take care of this dog and how do you take care of the dog that's just poisoned themselves from eating a bunch of plants in the backyard that we didn't even know were poisonous. And how do we bring our dog back from that? And where do we go? And also looking at, even going to the point of investigating, okay, veterinary care that's not holistic veterinary care, like, and to a point of, we don't care about the holistic anymore. We just care about what we can do to make life better for this dog for the days that this dog is here. So we don't care about the holistic anymore. In fact, we're just opening our world up to whatever that is that's going to bring our dog less pain. And it was beautiful to see prayer in action, for example. It was beautiful to just see the holistic people that we got wind of aren't available to our dog for over a year. My dog probably won't be here a year from now, so there's no point in putting our dog on that waiting list. And we got some really good information from our vet, who doesn't claim to be holistic, but gave us some pretty good holistic information. And then there I am in my prayer, just kind of going, I don't want all this responsibility on me. And I don't know enough for all this responsibility to be within me. So, okay, universe, bring in the people, bring in the conversations, I'll do what I need to do, which is get out of my house, go walking the streets, go opening myself up to that conversation. And it was very interesting to see within a very short period of time what showed up. The things showing up on the internet, the conversation at Hooper's Pharmacy with Francine. Love her. She's down at Hooper's Pharmacy in the Beach. She's a homeopath. She knows quite a lot about taking care of pets when it comes to homeopathy. And when I was telling her what was going on with our dog, she was like, well, there's homeopathic calendula. And that there's homeopathic. Oh, and then I asked her, I said, well, can a dog take aloe? I was looking to do something to settle the intestinal system of my dog. Can a dog eat aloe? Can I put aloe gel or something? And she looked at me, she said, well, there is homeopathic aloe. She said, I don't actually know about I don't know about the physical substance of aloe, but I know that I have worked with homeopathic aloe with animals and it's worked really well. And I said, great. Let's energy test that. Let's look at the energy test of the calendula. Let's look at homeopathic energy testing for the aloe. Both of them worked really well for our dog. And they were lovely for bringing our dog into a settledness of the digestive system within a minute of just taking the eyedropper of stuff just made from the pellets, just 3 pellets in a little bit of water. And her, just beautiful her, just saying, don't even worry about putting alcohol in that. You're going to get through that within a week or a week and a half. Don't even worry about that. You don't have to worry about preserving it. Just make another bottle a week and a half from now if you need it. And I'm like, how beautiful are you? Thank you very much. Thank you to the person that knows about those sorts of things and knows what you can get away with and what you can't. And so, that was lovely. But I think the beautiful piece was just watching the universe meet you, meet the stress, meet the responsibility, bring you the people that do know, who very generously said, have you tried this? And of course I energy test everything. So it's just having those conversations was beautiful. And it was lovely. So I was able to keep our dog in a place of being mostly pain-free all the way until she left us. I will say, I don't know who's going to be listening to this recording, but I will say we found out some very interesting information during our journey. Biofeedback afforded us one of those pieces. We had a rose of Sharon. We still have a rose of Sharon tree in our backyard. It started as a little plant that was given to us as a wedding gift, and we put it in the ground, and now it's a tree. It's a big rose of Sharon tree. I didn't know that rose of Sharon was part of the hibiscus family, and I didn't know that it is actually poisonous to animals. I had no idea about that. So it didn't have a poison effect to our dog until our dog started to eat the leaves. And our dog didn't start to eat the leaves until I started to take every single weed out of our garden that my dog was trying to find to digestively help it. And one of those weeds was apparently a very common weed in a lot of people's backyards that I didn't even know about. Apparently a couple of my other neighbors did. And when I started to talk about it, oh, yeah, I'm always pulling that weed out of the back of our house. And I was like, well, that might have been a good conversation for us to have. But a year ago, creeping Jenny? No, that's another, no. Yeah, now I've lost it. Something creeping. And anyway, that was the plant that she got very sick on. And then when she couldn't get any more of that plant, she ended up starting to eat a few of the hibiscus leaves, which was the rose of Sharon. And we didn't figure that one out until we figured that one out. So our dog was poisoning herself a little bit towards the end of her life. And that was interesting to see. And I'll never know if that was kind of intentional in the sense that, she was weak enough now and old enough now that she couldn't chase squirrels and she knew it. And she couldn't go after her balls and she knew it. And so maybe it was just kind of like, I'd just rather not be here, but I love these humans, but I think I'd rather not be here. I don't know. Don't know. I think that maybe I'll ask her one day in one of my moments of wanting to connect. So that's been my world, but my world very different than my husband's. I was the one that was here with her all the time. So I was the one that was, let's call it, left behind, or couldn't go certain places, or couldn't travel to Alberta in that wonderful trip that my husband took for work, and couldn't go there because I was with our dog. So as our dog leaves, there is a freedom. There's a relief. There's a lessened responsibility of care that was quite stressful because I'm not a vet and I don't have a lot of information that has anything to do with pets. So it was relying on some people that do, and relying on some people that have had pets and gone and walked that road, and relying on beautiful Francine down at Hooper's, and just needing to trust these people, really feeling I can trust these people. They do know what they're doing and I don't know what I'm doing. And really just stepping forward to take care of this dog when I really didn't feel like I knew what I was doing, but was very aligned with some people that did know what they were doing, and feeling very blessed by that. But it was still a little bit of a troubling feeling to feel like you didn't know what you were doing. Like you just didn't know what you were doing, and you didn't have any education around that. You didn't have a wheelhouse around that. And it was different than nutrition, where I do feel like I have a bit of an expertise in that. So it was an interesting road to walk. And when Nisu wasn't here anymore, I wasn't walking that road, and there was a relief around that and a release around that. And I don't think my husband felt either of those things. So he's just more in the grief. And I've got a freedom felt within me that he didn't have a feeling of being taken away. So we're in just different worlds around this, and I can kind of see it on his face. So yeah, it's been interesting. So, and in the freedom, we were talking about this because you said, oh yeah, it sounds like we're in a bit the same place. I laughed and smiled. Cause it's about looking at my career right now, like looking at what do I do? What do I do? I've got a practice. I love my practice. I've had a practice in my office for a lot of years. I was teaching for a lot of those years too, and it was a wonderful complementary thing. I'm not teaching anymore now, and not formally teaching. And I don't know if I want to do any teaching that's online teaching. I don't know if I want to sit in front of a computer for long periods of time and do that. And I don't have a concept of where that teaching would come from if I wasn't doing that. So then it's what else? What else? Because I don't think I want my career to just be a home-based practice. I don't think that's going to, that just doesn't answer it all for me. And so we were having this conversation, like the vision for the future, the what else, and not seeing it. And not seeing it after my dogs passed. And kind of going, that's interesting. I didn't see it before. And now the dog has passed, and I'm not seeing it now. And so I'm not seeing this vision for my future. And then just really just sitting with that, going, well, I can't say I'm not seeing a vision for my future because I have to take care of the dog, because I don't have to take care of the dog. I'm not seeing a vision for that more extended future. And then, as I was saying to you earlier, that I'm not really upset by that. I'm not really stressed by that. I'm just kind of in a place of going, maybe it's just not something that's going to reveal itself yet. And I think I'm okay with that. I was saying to you that I know seeing a vision for our future is a governing vessel issue. I see a vision for my future. And if I can't see a vision for my future, am I withholding a vision for my future? And what if it's not withholding? What if it's just not ready? And what if that not ready is an okay thing? What if it's a natural thing? What if it's a built-in thing? What if it's just like the tulip that's not ready to bust through the ground yet from that bulb? What if the not ready isn't anything to criticize? It's not anything to poke at. It's not anything to go to therapy around. It's just a fact. It's like, it's not ready. It's not ready. It's still bubbling. It's still germinating. It's still, anyway, so these were the things that we were kind of discussing before. And so I'm going to shut up for a second and throw it over to you. See what you have to say about it. Well, see what you have to say about the not ready, the vision for your future, the where you are.
It's, yeah, that's an interesting question, because I guess similar to you, there were things that I was doing over the last couple of years where I wasn't available to try and find out new things too. So I'm there with you on that. And then, yeah, it's like, okay, I know something, there's got to be something, but for me, it's been a while that I know I love doing my shows. my podcasts. I love my writing. I have a feeling there's a book coming, but I don't know. I think it has to do with the walking for health kind of part that I've been doing. But there's so much, I don't know. I don't know where and I'm okay with it too. I just kind of sit with it and go, okay, well, but I don't know. I like the concept of the tulip. A lot of people put the concept of the butterfly or the cocoon, similar. I really liked your story about the corn, though.
Oh, well, okay. So Laurie brings that up. So the story about the corn was interesting in the sense that, again, it was about career change. So it goes back a long time ago, and it was when I was working in the restaurant industry, but I really wanted to change things a bit in my world. I didn't see my 70-hour work weeks or whatever being conducive to having a family, being conducive to that particular portion of my life. So I was looking for what else. And I ended up in a class, and this is before the internet, before any of that. So you physically went somewhere to go and do these classes. And it was an afternoon that I went, and I was sitting with this person who I can't credit today because I don't remember who they were, but I do remember the exercise. And the whole class was called Practical Spirituality. I remember that. And I liked the title. And one of the exercises that we were doing that afternoon, because he was introducing the concept that we all have a problem. We all have something that we're trying to sort, that we're not sorting. We can't sort. We're not seeing some vision for. And so he wanted us to work on that. And he wanted us to at least get some sort of insight, not necessarily about the problem itself, but to get an insight about why we were in the current state that we were in. So he had a big, giant, Seagram's purple sack of strange objects of different sizes. And you had to put your hand into that sack and you had to pull one of these out. And mine was a little piece of plastic corn. Had husks on it, but it was literally plastic corn with lots of husks on it, plastic. And I was supposed to take the problem that I was having at this time, and I was supposed to put it to the plastic corn to be able to figure out, while I put my pen on a piece of paper, how they were similar, how my problem was similar to this piece of plastic corn. And originally I just thought, and I saw other people who had other things, and I thought, oh man, their world's going to be a little simpler than mine. Like they pulled out a stapler, or they pulled out I have this little tiny piece of plastic corn. Are you freaking kidding me? But I still have this piece of paper somewhere in my world, in my file cabinet. I know I saved it because I found it. I found it in one of these, important pieces of paper, because it was an important piece of paper. And I'd written like 10 or 12 things. Some of them were really bizarre. But I'd written these 10 or 12 things that I was now saying were similar to this little piece of plastic corn. And the last one that came out, as I was stretching to really get this, was not just one sentence or one word. It was a channeling. It was literally a paragraph that spills out, and I'm just there writing it. And it was something like, my problem, which was my problem of changing my career, but not really seeing a vision for that change in my career. And that problem was like this little piece of corn, because it was all behind a husk right now. And it was not to be revealed until it's time. But it was still growing. Like there was still growth happening underneath that husk, but it was not to be seen right now. But it was much more like, if I could find the piece of paper, I'd just read it, because it was much more profound. But that was basically what was spoken. And so I settled down. Like I looked at some, and I said, that's it. That's my message. All these other ones are a little foolish, but that's my message. And that's what that gentleman said. He said, you'll find at least one of the sentences that you're going to write, you will recognize it as your message. And that message is literally coming from a place within you. It's coming from a higher sense of yourself that you don't necessarily access so often. And so if you do an exercise like this and you throw down the stupid stuff that comes from you just consciously reaching, you get desperate enough, he said, and you'll go find yourself. You'll go reach for yourself and find that, I'm going to call it that divine intelligence, but he didn't call it that. He called it our higher power. Anyway, it settled me down. It was kind of like, okay, all right, it's coming. It's coming. It's going to reveal itself in time. And now I just need to just go on with whatever it is that I'm doing and trust that, it's all happening underneath the surface. It's all happening just the way it's all happening for that tulip underneath the surface. And that tulip didn't need to have me or you taking the therapy. But it was not going to do what it was going to do until its natural timing. And so then I just wonder, I think, well, maybe that's the case here. Like there's a natural timing to us. There's a natural timing to our reveal. And maybe one of the reasons why you and I are not so upset about, well, what next? How do we fill in this hole? Like nature abhors a vacuum, so the hole's going to get filled. But maybe the hole gets filled with a little bit of this right now, and the hole gets filled with a little bit of this, and then you release that. And so maybe that's where it is for you and I right now. And the hole right now for me is getting filled with taking care of my mom, and the hole for you is getting filled with this right now. But it's not the permanent filling of the hole. It's just the way it's going to be filled, and you're going to learn a few things about you along the way while it gets filled with that for a while. And then, but somewhere it's like the next part of what you might call your career is there. And that's what I think is going to go on. That's what I think is going on.
No, if you freak out, as soon as you bring fear into it, the energy completely changes. And then you're like, oh, I got to do something. I remember at a certain point I had a coach. It was a friend, sort of, but it would go through and like bring out the silliest things, like, well, your picture, you need to have a more professional picture because, if you're wanting to be a business, you can't have, a picture of your head tilted or, a picture of you with an animal. It's like, but that's who I am. I remember somebody saying, oh yeah. And, in a year, you're going to have completely white walls. I'm like, ew. Like, that's just not me. Like, okay. I think she meant lights. I did get lots more lights, but it's like, oh, this is just, it's interesting how people come up with things to do because they don't know. And then they get so caught up in doing the things that people are saying. And if you don't just sort of sit with it and let it happen, it's just like, well, doing something's not going to fix it. It's being like, it's that place of, okay, how do I actually, it's not so much what's ahead, but how do I want to feel in those moments? Like what's the emotion that I want? And just being that instead of trying to do something that's going to change it. But being open at the same time, like that's the whole thing about being open. I always think, well, am I missing an opportunity because I'm somehow missing it? I'm not open to it. Am I throwing away ideas that may actually be something that is good? I don't know. But unless it really connect with it, I don't feel like I need to do it. I just need to let it happen or be or focus more on the emotion. Like the whole thing about The Secret, which I think they really kind of messed up, was that it's not about the greed. It's not about the things you accumulate. It's not about the bigger house or the bigger, faster car. It's about how do you want to be in each moment?
I think they met people in that movie, The Secret. I think they met people where they were. So I think they were teaching a concept that I think is a very valuable concept, but they were meeting them in the materialistic world.
Because we're so
like if you get good at this concept, look at the matter that can be brought to you. Versus, and so I just think they were meeting people there.
Right. It was a starting point.
It was a starting point. And did that contribute to the mortgage crisis? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But I do think they were meeting people where they were in the, oh, that'll get me more stuff.
Right. Ooh.
Right. Yeah. I'm feeling like I'm not measuring up to the Joneses down the street. So this is going to get me more stuff in an easier way. Yeah. You and I are on the same page about that. But when I sat there in a place and really just looked at it, went, oh, I see. They're really just trying to bring people into an awareness of something quite large, but meeting them where they are. Yeah. Anyway, this is where I am right now. So kind of more settled than I was then, for sure, about not really knowing where this next step is career wise.
That was what the
but just knowing I need to bring something in that is fulfilling and joyful, and not really quite knowing where that is. One of my girlfriends said something very interesting. She said, what they had done, what they had chosen to do is they went back in time. They went back to find something in their past that they were good at previously, that they really enjoyed, that they kind of moved away from. And they went back to refine that. And they said they're having a very lovely time having gone back to refine that. And they really created a whole career now from a very joyful place. And their career is actually really helping older people. But they've gone back to being very physically active. They've gone back to doing, I won't say landscaping, but doing yard work and handyman work for older people. And they're making another career out of that. And they're just answering their need to be more active. Their need to get off the couch, their need to be helpful. And they're finding a lot of joy in that. And they call it going back to where they were previously. And just picking something up from then that they kind of walked away to secure more success or whatever it was that they were wanting to attain. And yeah, so they just said that to me. They said, maybe you need to look at, things that you've done in the past that were really, brought a lot of joy and happiness and fulfillment, and that you kind of walked away from. And is there anything that you walked away from previously because you felt that you needed to, or you felt like it was time, and that you'd like to revisit? And I thought about several things, and I remember saying to them, I think that's very interesting and astute that you've said that, because I've gone from an energy medicine perspective, I've gone back to just basic muscle testing. I've gone back to, in fact, even looking at revamping the little production that I did. But I loved, that was my beginning of energy medicine, was muscle testing. The neurological feedback loop, if we want to get fancier. But I loved it then, and I've never stopped loving it. I just think it's a phenomenal tool for people to learn. And I just thought, isn't that interesting that you say that? Because of all the roads that I've walked, the 9 modules of body talk, all of that, it's like I was literally going back towards the end of the pandemic, even in it, just going back to basic muscle testing, going back to, if all of this left and I couldn't teach it anymore, be with it anymore, what would make me the saddest? And to be that I, if somebody said, no, you'd never be able to teach that again, sit with that again, it's like that would bring a lot of sadness, which the Chinese medicine people say they don't separate sadness from joy. To them, it's sadness, joy, sadness/joy. And it connects into small intestine meridian and heart meridian. And they never separate the two. And I thought, interesting. Now I've thought about several other things that I walked away from to bring myself to this career. And I've gone back to look at those to say, is that where I'm going? Is that where I'm going next? Which wouldn't seem like backward, because it would be, okay, well, if I went back to pick that up as a strand and to say, well, I walked away from that for a bit of time because I wanted to go over here. If I pick that up as a strand, well, how would I do that now? Not revisiting. It's actually event planning. It's actually party event planning. How would I do that now versus what I did then? Which was crazy fun then, but do I want to do that again? And if I stepped into event planning in a different way, or in a way that honors where I am right now, what would that look like? Or to be a part of an event. Do I want to be the event planner, or do I want to be part of the event? And it's just kind of an interesting, and all of it's just kind of sitting in the see where all that transpires. Yeah, but it's it's an interesting time. An interesting time, but I have heard people that speak about joy. They speak about our contribution at this time is one of joy. It is a, connection, an embodiment of soul, an embodiment of spirit. To embody spirit is to live joy, is to answer that question, what brings me joy now? And, and it's different. Barbie dolls used to bring me joy when I was a kid, but they don't bring me joy now.
What about the movie? Did it bring you joy?
I was wondering if you were going to say that. As soon as I said that, I went, okay, now we're going to open up the door to the movie. You know what? I don't have, I'm glad I saw the movie. I'm glad I saw the movie, because there was just too much hype and talk about the movie to not see the movie. I didn't dislike the movie. I didn't dislike the movie. I heard some interesting things after the movie that I thought were quite interesting. I like the people that were kind of speaking about the movie in an intelligent way after the movie.
Right.
Like, they were pointing out that when you actually look at the reality of Mattel now, like if you look at the reality of where things are in the corporate world of Mattel, and the movie presents it as what Barbie walks into the boardroom with the patriarchal idea that there's this boardroom that's just filled with men. But when you actually look that up, apparently the corporate entity of the boardroom, it's half women, half men. And I thought, well, that was interesting. Like, okay, so you made a movie to make a point, but then you actually kind of presented a lie as you made the movie to make a point. And I thought that was a very interesting thing to find out afterwards, when you actually drill down on, well, what is the truth? And then I thought, I wonder how these people at Mattel actually feel now that they've been presented this way. And I wonder how the women feel that were completely ignored as being the 6 women that are currently on the board, and how they might feel about the fact that they were not honored in that movie, which wasn't presenting itself in a light that recognized. Anyway, I just thought it was interesting. Was it entertaining? Yeah. Did it skirt some lines that were, anyway, whatever. Oops. For a different day, different time. But yeah, that's, I think listening to people talk about it afterwards and kind of pull it apart a little bit was more interesting to me than the actual movie itself. And I was glad that I saw the movie so that I could actually follow what they were saying. So, yeah. Interesting conversation.
So yes, bringing joy. What brings you joy? And that's one of the things that they always suggest you look at when you're trying to think of what's the next step, right? Well, what brings you joy? Like, okay, I still enjoy all the things that I do, but I want something more. I want something else. There's something else that's not quite there yet.
Well, so it's part of so you're saying I enjoy everything that I do, but I want something else. Or what you're also saying is I want something more.
Yeah.
And so is that okay? You enjoy what you do, and then you're sitting here going, I want something more. Well, is that okay? Is that okay? You already have this that you, so I throw that out to you because I think sometimes for us it isn't. It isn't okay. Like there are people that do not have jobs that they actually enjoy. They have jobs that they actually hate.
Right.
They hate their job, or they loathe their job, or their job completely frustrates them, or they're so unhappy in their job. And you actually have a job, you know, I don't know where you are financially, but you have a job that you actually enjoy, that you like. Mm-hmm. And now you're holding out your hands to the universe saying, I want more. I want more than this. And then is there some portion of you or some portion of me that is sitting there saying, well, how can we be holding our hands out to the universe saying we want more than this when we actually have something that we enjoy? And how, you know, are we just being ungrateful, selfish beings? that we've actually figured out how to do this reasonably well, that we're actually in some sort of an alignment with something where we are enjoying this relationship with this universe. We're enjoying this relationship with our work. Are we just being selfish, ungrateful beings by holding out our hands and saying, please, could we have more? Could we have more than this? Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes we get wrapped up in that and we don't know that we've gotten wrapped up in it. Like it's like, are we being irresponsible? Are we being selfish? Are we being, obnoxious? Are we, you know, like, you know, are we doing the right thing by wanting more when we already have this that makes us happy? Shouldn't we be suffering? Like, shouldn't we be, if we open our hands, are we just opening our hands up to more suffering? Are we, you know, it's an interesting piece, right?
Well, that's what I find with the doing part. Because when there was a time that I needed to get more financially, when I looked back, the one thing that I enjoyed immensely was doing volunteer work with disabled children. So that was why I got into the bus, because one, it allowed me to have enough time, but it also allowed me to work with the kids that I actually really enjoyed. But then because it was, I don't know. I mean, I know we discussed this, but I don't know if it was because I was trying to do something instead of it being ready to happen. Like I remember, you know, taking the course and, you know, taking my driver's thing, and it's like the woman going, you're not even nervous. Like, well, it's not that I feel like I'm above this, but it's just, why would I be nervous about taking a driving test? I've been driving for 35 years, 40 years. Like, why would I be nervous about it? I know my rules. I'm not like, that was just, but I guess that desperation for some people that they had to have something that, so it was that, but then, you know, I got so sick from it because of all the problems with buses. But so then, yeah, it's like, is it because I was trying to do something before I was ready? I know I needed it, but was it this thing about doing instead of just sort of being and letting things happen? But I needed a shift. And once that shifted, then everything sort of fell in place again and everything was working well. And now it's like, well, okay. Then COVID happened. It's like, okay, so something need to change a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah. So it's also interesting, this whole, you know, career or job or whatever. It's like, and we're going back to where we were a half an hour ago. How do you want to feel? Mm-hmm. How do you want to feel? Like maybe that's one of the pieces when you created the bus that was going to take you. So the bus was going to give me the income that was going to, and the flexibility of hours that was going to allow me to do the volunteer work over here. So I invented the bus. But okay, but where was the feeling on the bus? Like, how do you want to feel in that job? That's the job with the bus. Because the bus job wasn't a job that you actually sat there and envisioned the feeling. It was just, this is the feeling was over here. The feeling was with the volunteer work. The feeling wasn't with the job. The job was just the means to get to the feeling that I really wanted to have, that I was already having with the volunteer work. Well, why can't it be both? And maybe that would not have changed the solution of the bus being a beautiful job to have while you're segueing into working with your handicapped people, children. But if we'd envisioned the whole thing as being joyful, right, as just being one big job of joy, like one big life of joy, then maybe that would have brought you a whole bus experience that would have been with a different company, that would not have involved suffering, would not have involved all of the things that you went through. Right? So it's an interesting piece, right?
Right.
But it's like, I'm going to be satisfied with this. Like, this seems like it'd be a good job. So I'll be satisfied with this because this is what I really want. And now I just need and it's like, okay, but somewhere along the line, we left the door open for suffering. We didn't create the life of joy, the joyful life.
Well, and then to not go into a new, completely different topic, but maybe we'll talk about next time, but the whole responsibility thing, because the responsibility thing is an issue that I've worked with probably my entire life. And the responsibility of working with these kids and having the fact that the bus was poisoning these kids and, you know, how they just didn't care, like that whole responsibility thing was probably what created more suffering, right? Because it was that whole issue of, I feel responsible for these kids. And if I'm getting sick, sure, I might be on the bus longer than them, but they must be getting sick too.
So this was disabled children that you were taking around.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's not so the volunteer work was the bus, or the volunteer work came after the bus ride?
That was when I remember, it was one of the things where I needed something to sort of tie me over for a bit until things sort of moved back into a better place. So I was looking at all the things that I used to love to do. One of the things I love to do, in fact, the reason I went to Ryerson was because their social work program had part of a disability part in it. Once I got there, it was gone, but it was because I used to do volunteer work at the Y, and I loved working with the disabled kids. Loved it. That was it was my way to get away from my home environment. So I loved doing the volunteer work. I did a lot of it. And I loved working with the kids. So I kind of found a way to move that together, only it wasn't a good fit because I wasn't doing the being, I was doing the doing.
Yeah. And so then responsibility for these kids, and then responsibility for saving these children from what you now knew was being very harmful to them.
Diesel bus, very poor ventilation. It was terrible. I mean, if I got heavy metal poisoning from it, they definitely got it too, because they couldn't move. I'm not sure how much we can explore at this point, but
well, divine hug for you as you bring that forward. Divine hug for them as you bring that forward. And it is an interesting topic, because I think we can get very locked in to responsibility, duty, obligation, loyalty. I think we can get very boxed in and sometimes trapped by that, and our hearts just become linked in with that, and we just, it's like, don't talk to me about joy. Don't talk to me about joy. Don't talk to me about these crazy concepts that you have. I've got to save these kids. I've got to do this first. I've got to fight this. I've got to, now that I've dumped myself here, now that I've landed here, there is no opportunity for that. And I can't see my way out, and I don't want to see my way out because they need me and I am their voice. Yeah, no. And it's like, and how do you help you? Or it's like, where's the right answer to that? the right answer to that is companies doing the right thing. You know what I'm very grateful for? That we are being revealed to ourselves. Every day this is happening, we are being revealed to ourselves. And it's going to continue to happen. And we can't stop that now. So situations like you went through and others have gone through, or that I've been locked into some responsibility, duty, or obligation that where I couldn't find my way out of something. These things won't happen. They won't happen for much longer. Because companies are made of people. And people are being revealed to themselves. Little by little. And so everything's going to change. And so we will know what the right thing is. We will know. And that's what we'll do. We'll just do the right thing. There won't be arguments about it anymore. There won't be Congress going back and forth with Republicans and Democrats, and just in crazy free falls. We'll just do the right thing, and we'll know what the right thing is.
I'm looking forward to that time.
Yeah, but I mean, even as I say it, and you took a breath. Because it's already starting to happen. Because we are being revealed to ourselves. I am being revealed to myself. You are being revealed to yourself. It's happening for all of us.
I'm not sure where we're at in this time because
I don't know either, but isn't that a nice feeling that we're just in right now?
Yeah, exactly.
And I just feel like I spoke truth. And so that does make me happy. It does sort me. It does comfort me to say that out loud and to know that is the truth. And to know that's not just the truth for you or me or the person down the street or my neighbor, or that it's the truth for us all. Which means some of this monkey business is going on, this horrible atrocity monkey business that's going on. It will stop. It will stop, and we'll just know it's not the way. And we'll know it's not the right thing. And we'll just stop doing it. I was wondering, boy, this is going off in a bit, but it's a nice thing to say this out loud too. The Heart Math Institute discovered years ago now, they had their receptor sites, their receiving sites all over the world that were looking at us and our hearts and our relationship to the earth. But one of the things that they were able to see through all of the mechanisms that they'd set up around the world is they were able to see the effect of the solar flares on us and on our behaviors. And that was an unexpected thing that they were able to see and get some news bites on. And so that happened in the uprising of Libya. And the uprising of Libya that happened X amount of years ago was directly connected to these giant solar flare activity that had happened at that time. An uprising in Egypt. And we've had significant solar flare activity that's been going on since around my son's birthday. So 18th, 19th, 20th, all the way through the 23rd, 24th of September, and I think even into now. And I wondered whether some of what's been going on right now with Israel and Gaza might have something to do with these solar flares and this increased solar flare activity. Because one of the things that they realized was that this impacts humans differently depending on who you are and how, let's call it, sun worshipping you are as far as your technology. And one of the things that they were able to find out is that some people get very angry. They get very angry when these electromagnetic solar flares come down onto the planet. They can't handle it. They go angry and almost feel attacked by them. And what happens is they group together. They start to get angry and battle-like in packs. And then you have lots of us that go to sleep. And then some of us that get highly creative. We don't sleep and we get highly creative. And I've just thought, I wonder if some of what's going on here in the whole Gaza Strip might have to do with solar flares. And then I thought, could more be done? Could more be done to be helpful to the people, to be helpful to us technologically? Could more be done? Could we ask for more? Could we go to that divine intelligence? Could we see if that's an issue? Could we get a new morphic blueprint descending, a new master folder for being able to be one with the sun, to operate in harmony with the sun, even with this immense amount of more sun electromagnetic stuff coming down onto the planet? And I thought, wow, it's worth looking at. It's worth seeing whether we can, let's call it programming. Let's call it software programming. Could we get a better upgrade or a new version of that software capability so that we could be in more harmony here, and the people that were really disturbed by this would stop feeling attacked by that solar flare activity and stop wanting to reach out in retaliation to attack when really the thing that was attacking them was the sun. The thing that was really, really, really impacting them to the point where they had to flare off and react was the sun. And you never thought I'd bring that up. But I thought, I didn't know I'd bring that up. But you know what? Somebody might hear that. Somebody might hear that that's going to listen to this and go, wow, I never thought about that. I'd like to put some time and attention to this. I'd like to create a prayer around this. I'd like to do something about this. And, why not put it out?
Right.
Because I think it kind of is truthful. I'm not Jewish, but I would like to be helpful where I can for all people, because I think we're all finding this very difficult.
Well, I think this is a good place to stop.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird place to end, but I think we started with grief and we're kind of ending with a bit of a grief piece.
All right. Well, you've been listening to News for the Heart. We've been getting the heart of what matters with Tracy McBurney. Yep, grief, love. I'm not sure what this is going to be called, but we'll come up with something.
I don't know what this is going to be called. It's a weird kind of mess. I'm in a bit of a mess. It's a weird little bit of a mess.
Little mess. A grief mess. No. All right. We will be back next month. And thanks a lot, Trace.
Okay. Love you.
Love you too.